Hi everyone, Ted Wyman here with another edition of On the Rocks. I'm joined once again by six-time Canadian champion Jill Officer to talk about the Scotties Tournament of Hearts in the Calgary bubble. And Jill, a pretty big day at the Scotties on Tuesday as your old skip, Jennifer Jones, someone who you've known most of your life, became the all-time winningest player in the history of the Scotties with 153 wins. You have a bunch of wins yourself, I know, but and you were there for a lot of them with her. But just can you talk a little bit about what Jen has meant to you, what she means to the game, and what her place is in this game?
Wow. Well, I think that's a pretty loaded question to start off with. But
Here.
just first of all, just want to say how proud I am of Jen for reaching that milestone. And I mean, what an incredible accomplishment, right? And she's not done. Like that's the thing too, is that she's still got more games this week, and there could be another Scotties next year. And I don't really know what her plan is after this quadrennial. But she's got more games even just this week to add to that tally, which when you think about it, is really quite incredible. But then when I think back on even just my time with her and the longevity that we had in our careers, it's also kind of no surprise, and it's also kind of no surprise that it was Jennifer Jones that beat the record, right? And it beating Colleen's previous record. So it's quite the feat, and yeah, I'm really proud to say that I was part of a significant number of those wins. And yeah, I think back to playing with Jennifer Jones, and somebody said the other day I would never bet against her, and that's the thing. I would never bet against her either. I was so fortunate to be part of the group and have the success that we did, and so it it rightfully so should be her that was breaking the record.
I think you were there for 126 of them, which is pretty good, I gotta say.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where I stood. Somebody asked me about that as well, but I, obviously, with missing the last few Scotties with them after stepping away from the team, I wasn't sure exactly where I was at. But yeah, I guess that's a pretty significant number too, I suppose.
Not bad at all. And obviously, with Jen, I had a chance to talk with her yesterday, and it was just so important to her, this record. And you know her well, and she doesn't often kind of let on if something is pretty cool. But I think she thought this was pretty cool, and I think she's thinking of her dad, who was your guys' coach for many years and biggest fan, and how much this would mean to him and his and her daughters looking forward. It's kind of cool how she's able to you know balance those two things here later in her career. I'm not so sure at a different time if she would have been able to appreciate it as much.
I could not agree more with you. I watched your interview with Jen yesterday, and I also was a little bit surprised that she acknowledged the significance of it. But I was really glad to see her do that. I mean, it rightfully so. It's a big milestone, and I mean, if she were to go on and win, if the team was to go on and win this week, that would be another huge milestone for winning 7 Scotties. Like nobody would have thought that was possible, 10, 15 years ago. So I was glad to see her sort of acknowledge that this was a significant milestone, and how she related it to the impact that her dad had on her in curling, and what it means going forward for her daughters. I know that's really important to her, is for her to show her daughters that anything is possible, and that if you put your mind to it and you work hard, that you can achieve anything. So I think I just thought it was great to see that she was proud of that.
Well, the team isn't doing all that well so far, I would say 3-2, which is okay, but right in the middle of the pack in a real dogfight for the championship round. She knows they've got to pick it up, but a couple of teams that don't need to pick it up are Gary Anderson and Rachel Holman, Ontario, and Team Canada. Anderson is Team Canada. They're both 5-0. They're both already through to the championship pool, and the it's been a struggle for some teams out there, but those two teams seem to be handling it the best right now, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. And I guess to some degree, it's no surprise that if there was going to be a couple of teams that rose to the occasion or rose to, to the point that they've got that consistency going, it doesn't surprise me that it's Anderson and Holman. I would have maybe put Jones in there as well, but I also know the history of Team Jones, and sometimes we've had to battle our way, to the end of the week. And
Not always a bad thing either, is it? When you get
no, and that you're right. That's not a bad thing either to have those close games under the pressure and things like that. And we always said that, and I did hear Jen say that the other day. But yeah, there's certainly been a bit of struggles out there as well, and we're seeing that. I think we have to keep in mind the situation that we're in here, though, with pandemic and players having very little opportunity to practice.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that, Jill? Because give me a sense of how much you would normally be practicing in a year leading up to it, and how many games you might have played before coming to the Scotties compared to this year where no practice, no games.
Right. And I mean, every province has had different situations. Some of the teams out east have essentially been on the ice all year because they had their Atlantic bubble. So, that certainly can be a benefit to them. I think, some other teams maybe had one practice or have maybe been on the ice half a dozen times in this whole season. Whereas normally at this point in the season, you've got 50, 60 games under your belt on a number of different ice conditions. You've got that repetition, you've got those habits built, you've changed bad habits or whatever, and you've been on the ice essentially every day since the end of August. And a lot of teams have not had that opportunity. So I think we need to keep in mind here that as much as it seems like such a normal thing for us as fans at this time of year to be able to sit and watch the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, I think we have to keep in mind we're in a global pandemic and a lot of these players have not had the normal ice time. And so I think, we as fans still have to adjust our expectations a little bit as well. I know the players are probably going out there or have gone out there with this similar expectations. And I think teams like Holman and Anderson, I think there's a certain level of excitement that there probably was to go out there and play for everybody. But teams like Anderson and Holman and even Jones and Fleury, they still have more experience in terms of dealing with that midweek fatigue. They have more experience to draw on from the past. They have more repetitions, more muscle memory. And if they've done any sort of mental preparation, that could explain why they've been consistent as well. Not to say the other teams haven't, but if it was more deliberate, then that could explain that as well. But I think we as fans just need to keep in mind that teams have not had much time to play and to deal with different ice conditions and have certain positive habits built into their routines. And let's just be happy we have live curling to watch.
For Carrie Anderson, maybe the key is practicing on frozen Lake Winnipeg. That seems to have helped her get ready for this thing. And hey, I mean, realistically, you do what you got to do to get ready.
Yeah, 100%. I know that if I had been in that situation, I probably would have done something similar simply for the pre-shot routine and the building of or the loosening, I should say, of my muscles, sort of to to remind my muscles of how to slide. And you could still practice your kick out of the hack and what that speed is, and repeat what you feel like a normal draw weight on arena ice would be. So as much as it was, a creative idea, we did see a lot of the players in the Scotties doing things like that to prepare. And that very well could have gone a long way in seeing how an Anderson or a Holman, who also did the same thing, are performing.
I was a little shocked to read a story by our friend Greg Strong, who said that the ratings are down 17% for the Scotties this year. That really surprised me because I thought, well, nobody's going to it, and what do people have to do? So I kind of was thinking there might be a little bit more, but maybe they're going up against the NHL every night too, and that kind of thing. So you kind of wonder if that plays into it. But were you a bit surprised by that number too?
I was a bit surprised. Yeah, I was quite surprised, I should say. And I think we'll have to wait to maybe get a little bit more details about maybe why that is, or are people spending more time on Netflix, or I don't know. Like, but I also agree that I was a bit surprised that that was down. But what I also saw in Gregory's um, article was that the number of viewers in the 18 to 35 age range was actually up. And that I think is very, very significant, because that is the age group that we need to start to target in terms of watching, like a fan base, and watching and getting involved in the sport. And also the age group that we want to target in terms of getting people out to play. We've always had a great fan base of older people, and we obviously want to maintain that and keep that as a sport. But I was pleased to see that the numbers were actually up in that age group. I think that that's important, and I think that that's a really important reason to have curling on TV right now.
You know, it's really interesting that you say that, because the number of players involved in this event is up in that age group as well. You know, when you're looking at it and you look at the Corinne Brown team that comes all the way through from junior, now the Laurie St. Jacques team from Quebec that comes through from junior, you've got Mackenzie Zacharias, who's the defending world junior champion, Beth Peterson team. These are all teams that have kind of grown together and are becoming, you know, now players on the scene. And that's good for curling, isn't it, when we see that?
I mean, it's not going to hurt, obviously, right? People relate to people that they see on TV. So if you're seeing people that are your age performing at a high level, then that's certainly never going to hurt. So yeah, I think that that's a great thing as well.
So I did touch on the Quebec team, Laurie St. Jacques, and the curling rock stars out of Laval. Just seem to be having a great time out there. They're playing really well as also, and in the mix for the championship round. And, you know, I would count myself among one of the media people who said no chance of that, given that Quebec had gone 0-7 in the previous 2 years, both years at the Scotties. They've been a real surprise, and they're doing pretty well, aren't they, Joe?
They really are, and yeah, they were definitely a surprise to me as well. And but how much fun are they having?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think we have to remember too how important that fun aspect is in what you're doing, and in terms of performing at a high level. You need to still be able to have fun. Otherwise, why are you there? And so I think that that's gone a long way for them this week in terms of performing. They are literally just soaking up this opportunity. They've got great perspective on it. They're just having so much fun, and man, are they making some big shots under pressure. And now their record shows it. So it'll be good if they, you know, get through, if they do get through to the championship final, for them to have more opportunity and to play some of the bigger names. And so yeah, they've been really great to watch.
Well, a bit of a falter on Tuesday night when they lost to Saskatchewan. A bit of some questionable decision making by the skip there, but, you know, inexperience, right? They've already beaten PEI. They've beaten Team Fleury with Chelsea Carey at the helm. Those are important wins when you're looking towards potentially getting into the championship round.
Well, you know, they're huge wins just out of pure pride. For the fact that this is their first Scotties. You know, we haven't seen much of them before. You know, they had some success in the junior ranks, but for them to come in and play well and beat teams like that at the Scotties is quite a feat, and they should be proud of themselves. So yeah, they certainly have made a couple of poor strategic choices that maybe weren't the best options, but that's totally normal for a team like that. And I know Corinne Brown's team was the same. There was some questionable last year, questionable calls in terms of strategy. And I think that's something that they focused on now and worked on, you know, watching a lot of game tapes that everyone has had time to do over the pandemic. And so that'll be something for the Quebec team to look at doing in the future as well. But the fact that they're winning against big name, you know, or more experienced teams, even making those mistakes, means they have a bright future.
Well, that's fantastic analysis again, Jill. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I know you're really enjoying watching the curling, so we'll have you back in a couple of days to hear more of your thoughts For Jill Officer, I'm Ted Wyman. You've been watching On the Rocks.